Okay, so I've moved down here on the exercise page, and here we are. We're going to explore working with lines. There's a number of ways and techniques of working with the line tool. So I can access that with the backslash key, or I can come up to my tool panel, and right next to the type tool is what's called the line segment tool. Now just know with a lot of these tools, we can work numerically, we can have numerical control, and that just works on the basis of clicking once on the artboard with your tool, and then you bring up a tool option box. Here I can put in the exact dimensions. So in this case, we're working with inches, so I could specify this as 3 inches, and I could choose the angle, let's say 90 degrees, and then click OK. And there I've gone ahead and created a line segment. I'll go ahead and increase my stroke weight to 3 so it's easier to see that. For now, I want to work more manually with the line tool before we get more into numerical control. So I'm going to go ahead and use my black arrow, and I'll just select the line that I created and hit the delete key. Alright, so I'll go back to my line tool, and now I will show you how to manually use this. So when you use the line tool, you're going to click once on the first point. You're going to hold down on the mouse, and so you're going to see a preview of where your line tool is going to go. And I want to bring my line tool all the way up here to the top. Now right now my smart guides are doing a really good job of telling me kind of when I've hit straight up and down, but I want to ensure that this thing is completely 90 degrees on the vertical axis. So in order to get symmetry, if we look right over here, symmetry for 90 and 45 degrees, I'm going to hold down on the shift key, and now as I drag up, you can see that this stays locked into the 90-degree angle. So I'll bring it all the way up here, and when I find that I'm at my endpoint, I'm going to release the mouse first, then the shift key. To end a path, we're going to hold down on the command key and click once. So anytime you're working with a tool and you hold down on the command key, you're going to access your arrow tools, and it's going to access the last arrow tool that you were using. So anyways, let's go back over here. Let's go ahead and draw a horizontal line. So I'm going to hover right on top of that last endpoint, and my smart guides are telling me I'm on the anchor, and I'm going to click and drag, and then I'll hold down on the shift key. I'll release the mouse, release the shift key. Hold down on the command key and click. Let's try it again. I'm going to come over to this anchor point. I'm going to click and drag. This time I'll hold down on the shift key, and you can see it's snapping to 45 degrees. If I come over here and I come all the way down, it's going to shift to that 90 degrees. But in this case, I want to be at 45. So I'll come all the way down and wait for my smart guides to tell me that I am intersecting this other point, and then I'll release the mouse, release the shift key, command and click. So let's do that a few more times. Click and drag, shift key, release the mouse, release the shift key, control click. And this time I'll go all the way across, holding down on the shift key and release, command key click. This time I'll make a custom angle. I'm not holding down on any of the shift key, and I will release. Okay, down over here, I want to create a line, but I want to create it from its center point and go out. Okay, so anytime you want to create something from a center point, you need to hold down on the Alt or Option key. So I'm going to hover right over this anchor of the last point on this large line. I'm going to hold down on my Alt key, and then I'm going to click and start dragging. So now it's making a line symmetrically from the center, but I want to make sure that this stays horizontal. So while holding on to the Alt key, I'm also going to hold down on the Shift key. And now you can see I'm making a line. It's staying on the horizontal axis. So right when I get it to about those endpoints, I'm going to release the mouse first, then release Alt and Shift. Okay, let's do some numerical control. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here, and I'm going to click once. Okay, it's going to ask me how big do you want this line and what angle do you want. Let's choose 45 degrees for the angle, and let's just choose 1 inch for the line length. Let's see what we get. Cool, so I get a 45-degree line. It grew out from that point. It's at 45 degrees. Let's go ahead and do that for this side as well. So I'm going to click once, and instead of 45 degrees, I'm going to come right over here, and let's try 135 degrees for this angle. So it's basically 45 and another 45 this way. And let's do it at 1 inch, and then I'll click OK. And there you can see we have another line going that way. We'll go ahead and just freeform one more line right over there. Within our line tool package, we actually have a few more tools related to making line segments. So I'm going to come over here to my tool panel and I'll click and hold. And now you can see I have a few other line tools that I can work with. Let's go ahead and use the arc tool. Actually, let's go back real quick and let's make this line segment right here first, kind of our baseline. Command and click, and now I'll go back, click on the line tool and hold, and find the arc tool. And as you can guess, if I click and hold, instead of making a straight line, now I'm making an arced line. When I'm done making the arced line, I'll hold down on the command key and click. And you can see the arc kind of follows the direction that you would go from the center. So here's the center. If I go this way, the arc kind of changes its curve. And then if I go this way, it changes the curve in the other direction. Command click when I'm done. Okay, so let's do some numerical control in working with the arc tool. So now I'm going to just click once here on this point, okay, and now it's going to ask me, how do you want this arc to grow and move across? So in this case, it's asking me across the X and Y axis, how do you want this to behave? So I'm going to go ahead and choose 1 inch, okay, along the x-axis and 1 inch along the y-axis, and we'll just keep it as a convex line, and let's just see what happens. And click OK. And there you can see it's made 1 inch high by 1 inch long arced line in the convex direction. So let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to come down to that first anchor point, okay, because I want it to connect. I'll click once. Okay, we do want a 1 inch by 1 inch. And by the way, if I didn't say this before, our reference point is right down here. Okay, we're at the bottom right. And this time I'll move the slope from convex to concave, and we'll bring it over to 50 degrees in the concave direction. And then I'll click OK. And so now we went 1 inch along the x-axis in the negative direction and up on the y-axis 1 inch. I'll do command click when I'm done. So now I'm going to do one more numeric controlled line. I'm going to click once right here, and yes, I want it to move 1 inch by 1 inch on the X and Y axis. But this time I'm going to take down the amount of concave degrees. So I'll bring this to about 15 degrees. And yes, I do want it to grow from the upper left side. And then I'll click OK. And that's good for that shape. Alright, so if we go back to the tool panel and click and hold, right below the arc tool, we have what's called the spiral tool. So this tool, as you can guess, if I start to click and drag from a center point, I am making a spiral. Okay, I'm holding down on the mouse, and as you can see, as I kind of move this around, okay, I move around the endpoint on that spiral. And whatever I made, I'm just going to click the delete button or undo. So I'm going to go ahead and use numeric control to make the spiral. So I'm going to click about right here on this template, and I'm going to do a radius of 1 inch, a decay, or this is basically the amount of spiral, at 80%. The number of segments, I'm going to keep at 8, and the style, I'll choose this one over here. Don't know exactly what to call these, but I'll click OK. And that's relatively the type of spiral that I'm going for. So I'll hit the V key to access my black arrow. You can see I got a bounding box around it. I'm going to go ahead and drag this over so I go right on top of the template. Now don't worry if your drawing isn't completely accurate to the template. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this. I'll use the arc tool and I'll see what I can do in connecting these two parts. So this is kind of like a snail shell. And then for these other parts, I'm just going to use my line segment tool, and I'm just more practice using my line segments. And there we go. Okay, so the last two tools for the line tool group are the grid tools. So the rectangular grid and the polar grid. So the rectangular grid, as you can imagine, is going to make a rectangular or square grid. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag. I'm holding down on the mouse key. Now this tool works by live numeric control, so I'm holding down on the mouse key, but I can see right here that I need more columns and I think I need one more row. To get more rows, I'm going to hit the up arrow key, and you can see as I do that, it's adding more rows. If I hit the down arrow key, I'm going to subtract the number of rows. I could go all the way down to 0 and have no rows at all, and I'll go back up again. I think I need 3 rows, and then I'll hit the left and right key to kind of experiment with the number of columns. So again, I could have 0 column, but in this case I want 3 columns. And then I'll release. Let's go ahead and try that with the polar grid. I'll come back into here and choose the polar grid tool. Now, when I need to make a perfect circle like the one I see here, I need to make sure that I'm holding down on the shift key. Once again, the shift key is going to give us symmetry. But I need to make sure I'm holding down on the shift key that is next to my arrow keys. So I'm going to hold down on the shift key. I'm going to click and drag. And if it's not quite on the right spot, I can hold down on the spacebar key. And now I can actually move the shape, okay, and get that in the center. I'll release the spacebar. I'm still holding down on my mouse and the shift key. I'll make it a little bit bigger. I'll hold down on the spacebar again to move that into place, okay, and then release the spacebar. And now that I see that I have the shape of the polar grid to what I want to change the amount of pi divisions within that. You can kind of experiment and see that the concentric circles work with your up and down arrows. So if I go with my up arrow, it's going to add more concentric circles. And if I go down, I'm going to reduce the amount of concentric circles. If I use my right and left arrow key, okay, I'm going to add different pie chart divisions. In this case, I need about 3 lines for that. And I'm still holding down on that shift key, and I'm still holding down on the mouse. Okay, it's like keyboard gymnastics. So when I get it to the amount of circles and pie divisions that I want, I'm going to release the mouse first and then release the shift key. And then I'll hold down on the command key and click, and there you go.